What's going on, YouTube? So I'm going to make a quick video about cutting weight without losing strength. So this is kind of geared towards anybody who's looking to shave off some body fat, maintain as much muscle as possible, and stay strong in the process. So that sounds like a win-win. And it's going to be hard, but it's totally doable. So first things first is, if you're really fat, you don't need to do much aside from clean up your diet. You know, if your diet is mostly chocolate milk and Snickers and donuts and whatever, you know, start eating some food that's more nutrient dense. It'll fill you up a lot more, and you should be able to shave off a fair amount of weight just doing that. Aside from that, if you say, you know, have tried that and it hasn't worked, or perhaps you are a little bit leaner, say 15% body fat, and you want to get closer to like 10 or 8, and you're a male. This is talking to guys, because if you're a female and you're 15%, you're pretty lean to begin with. So if you're somewhere in that ballpark, what you want to do is pretty much track your macros, and if you are not sure about that, you can do a YouTube search. I have a video about how to calculate macros, so I'll post a link for that as well. But pretty much what you want to do is you want to be in a very slight caloric deficit. So this is something that's going to take some time, and depending on how much weight you have to lose, it's going to take more time you know, than if you don't have that much to lose, obviously. So the key is doing this slow and steady, because first off, if you restrict your calories too much, it's going to affect your training in the gym. You're going to lose what's called FFM, or fat-free mass. So obviously the goal is to maintain your muscle mass and just lose fat. So the way to do that, again, is just to do this slowly. So how exactly are you going to go about doing this? So first things first is hopefully you've calculated what your maintenance calories are, pretty much the macronutrient breakdown that you need to hit a certain calorie number, which will allow you to maintain your current body weight. And what you're going to do from there is pretty much take a slight deficit. And this is going to vary depending on the person, but pretty much 200 calories per day is a good starting point, and then you can always adjust from there. So where in your macros are you going to take these calories from? It's all going to depend on kind of what you're starting at, but for the most part, a good place to start is taking a little bit from carbs and a little bit from fat. So as a strength athlete, for most people, staying with relatively high carb intake is the way to go. It'll kind of optimize performance. So don't be afraid to cut your fat to a certain point, obviously, just because fat is necessary for hormone production and things like that. And when people go really low fat, say like 20-30 grams a day, it can affect your mood and other things like that. So that's something that you're going to have to toy with yourself. But generally going lower fat and higher carb is better. So if you can take from your fats, that's great. I generally like to do a little bit of both, just that way it's easier when you're cutting weight. Because if you go super low fat and really high carb, it's kind of hard to make those macros fit. You kind of have to go out of your way to get really low fat food, and that's kind of a hassle. So pretty much you just want to do this like small caloric deficit, and throughout this whole time you want to maintain your protein really high. So Eric Helms from 3DMJ recently published a paper with a few other people in the International Journal of Nutrition, Exercise, and Metabolism, pretty much where he reviewed the current literature on protein intake for athletes that are dieting. And the results of the paper pretty much show that if you want to maintain your fat-free mass, you want to be somewhere between 2.3 to 3.1 grams per kilogram of fat-free mass as your protein intake. So the good news is that if you follow the standard 1 gram per pound of body weight, that's pretty much got you covered. So in case you don't believe me, let's just say you're a 200-pound man, means you weigh 90 kilos. If you're 20% body fat, you probably have like 70-ish kilograms of fat-free mass. So if you multiply that by 3, that would give you 210 grams of protein. So if you're doing 200 grams, you're right in that range. So let me just give you guys a sample case so that you guys kind of have an idea of what we're talking about here. So you are a 200-pound man, you're 20% body fat, and you're looking to cut some fat, maintain your muscle mass, and maintain your strength. So let's just say your starting macros are 400 carbs, 90 fat, and 200 protein. That would put you at a little over 4,000 calories. What you can do to start off, if I were them, I would probably say you could initially drop your carbs by about 30 or 40 and drop your fat by about 10 grams. That'll give you a decent deficit to start out, and then you kind of go from there every week. You monitor how your progress is doing, and the goal should really be to lose around maybe half a pound a week. So you're roughly at a loss of 2 pounds every month to start off, and then as you progress, you would want to slow that down a little bit, just because it'll be less to lose from. So that's the gist of it. As you get further on through the cut, depending on how much weight you have to lose, you might have to incorporate refeeds. So pretty much what that is a way of kind of making sure your metabolism doesn't slow down too much, because your body is trying to maintain homeostasis and trying to kind of make sure you don't lose weight. It's an evolutionary thing, right? It makes sense that you want to be able to hold on to as much weight as possible. So if your body's kind of sensing that you're in a deficit for an extended period of time, you're going to notice that the weight later on as you're cutting is going to be much harder to lose. So what you might want to do is, as you notice your progress kind of stalling a little bit, maybe once a week or once every other week, you want to incorporate a refeed day, which pretty much means you're going to up your carbs for that day, maybe closer to what you were at before you started dieting, and on those days you want to go particularly low on the fat. Just that way your total calories are not drastically higher than they should be, but the elevated carb intake will help keep your metabolism going. So that's just a quick example. Hope you guys found that useful, and if you guys have any questions, comment below.